Thank you, colleagues. Could I call Congress to order, please? Morning, delegates. I hope you all had good nights last night. It is Tuesday, I think. I have to keep reminding myself what day of the week it is, but it is only Tuesday. Congress, a few announcements. Please be advised that the Stroke Association are offering free blood pressure tests downstairs in the exhibitors area today. But please make use of this service as it won't be available after today. We've also, for delegates coming up to speak, we've also installed an additional light which is ahead of the speaker's eye line. We're very aware that I can see this one, but it's out the corner of the speaker's eye. So there is one directly ahead which the speaker should be able to see when they're looking forward. There's no other announcements, so I'm going to ask Helen Johnson to introduce Standing Order Committee's report number 4. Helen.
President Congress, Helen Johnson, Midland and East Coast Region, moving SOC report number 4. Emergency motions. The SOC has accepted 3 emergency motions as being in order for debate. They are Emergency Motion 3, Save British Steel, Save Scunthorpe, standing in the name of Midland and East Coast Region. The SOC recommends this be heard in the Industrial and Economic Policy General Session on Wednesday afternoon. Emergency Motion 4, Hostile Environment Mastermind rewarded with Queen's Honours, standing in the name of London Region. The SOC recommends that this be heard in the Political, Racism and Fascism and Immigration and Migration session on Wednesday morning. An Emergency Motion 5, Asda Retail, No to Contract 6, standing in the name of Yorkshire and North Derbyshire Region. The SOC recommends this be heard at the end of the afternoon session today. Bucket collections. Yesterday's bucket collection by Midland and East Coast Region for Butterflies Memory Loss Support Group in Hull raised the sum of £505.60. I think someone's just offered to double that.
Hello? Okay, thank you very much. Any other regions want to do the same? Thank you. Somebody making a note of these. Yeah, North West. Thank you. Thank you, Wales and South West. London, thank you. Yorkshire, thank you very much. GMB Scotland, thank you. Northern. Who hasn't?
Thank you very much, everybody.
Birmingham, and thank you. Southern, I can see Paul's hand up. Cheers, thank you very much. Excellent. And National Office. Sorry.
President Congress, I move SOC report number 4.
Thank you, Helen. Does anybody want to speak on SOC report number 4? No? In that case, can I ask all those in favour, please show. All those against? Thank you. Congress, our first item on the agenda is the local gift. This year, GMB Scotland has chosen to give the Congress local gift to the Glasgow Children's Hospital charity. Just before I get the speaker for that, could speakers on the special report that's next also please make themselves ready? But I call on Brenda Carson, GMB Scotland delegate, to say a few words about their local gift.
Brenda Carson, GMB Scotland, accepting the Congress gift on behalf of the cleft palate. A cleft palate is a gap in the split of a lip or the roof of the mouth, the most common facial birth defect in the UK, affecting around 1 in 700 babies born in the UK. I have a niece who I am guardian to, Sammy Jo, who was born with a cleft palate and has attended the Queen Elizabeth Hospital in Glasgow every 6 months for check-ups and has had 4 operations. The Cleft Palate charity is based on the Queen Elizabeth Hospital and supports not just Glasgow, but third world countries with special bottles and teats. If it wasn't for the donation, this vital support would not be available. Thank you for your support.
Thank you, Brenda. That's a really good cause that GMB Scotland have chosen. Thank you. We now move to the special report, Disability and Supported Employment. We now move to the first of our CE special reports on disability and supported employment. So just to recap the debating procedure, the report will be moved and seconded by members of the CEC. I will then call on one speaker from each region that wishes to speak on behalf of their region. We will then move to the vote on the special report. But before then, can I ask speakers on the next Equality and Inclusion group of motions, that is motions 118, Composite 5, Composite 6, Composite 7 and motion 124, please get ready for the next debate. So Dean Gilligan, CEC, London Region, is to move the special report. Is it too early for you, Dean?
Much too early. Gosh. Morning. President Congress. Dean Gilligan, suffering a wee bit, so forgive me. Speaking on behalf of the CEC in support of the special report on disability and supported employment. Congress, it is our fundamental aim to represent the interests of all our members. But as this report sets out, disabled people continue to face unacceptable barriers both inside and outside work. Discrimination is rife. 1 in 5 disabled workers has had a job offer withdrawn after disclosing their condition to an employer. Disabled workers earn about 1/10 less than their non-disabled colleagues. The disability employment gap is not narrowing, with the creation of a hostile environment which has seen 6,000 people die within 6 months of being declared fit to work. The UK has found to have made grave systematic violations of the United Nations Convention on Rights of Persons with Disabilities. Congress, that mark of shame is on this callous Tory government. As we celebrate GMB's historic 130th anniversary, we should be proud of our own record. Proud of the fact that we have organised veterans disabled by war after every major conflict. Proud of our record of representing Remploy workers, which continues to this day. And I am proud too of the work of the self-organised group GMB Ability in the London region. You're a bit slow, but yeah. And we know that we can do so much more. That's why when our members told us that they found it difficult to transfer their reasonable adjustments to a new role or a new employer, GMB launched a new trade union reasonable adjustments passport, which is endorsed by the TUC. Those of you who were here last year will remember the fantastic speech by Shireen Thompson from Southern Region, who called for more support for workers with conditions such as dyslexia. So GMB launched a Thinking Differently at Work campaign, which is already changing employer attitudes. And of course, GMB has been at the forefront of the Dying to Work campaign for dignity and fair treatment for workers who have terminal illness. This year, you've told us that you wanted materials for those with a hidden disability. We are going to go away and make that happen too. And Congress, this special report has also come about because our members told us we needed a new strategy. The manufacturing section in particular has worked hard to produce such a report. This special report sets out the need for a modern supported employment programme with ring-fence funding in line with the motions carried at Congress 2 years ago. It sets out our support for a social model of disability which recognises that people are disabled by barriers in society that need to be removed. It commits us to the principle of nothing about us without us, which places disabled workers at the heart of making decisions that affect them. And it lays out the message that when challenges arise, they are not just an issue to be resolved for one worker through individual casework until they arise again for someone else. The most lasting changes will always be achieved by removing those barriers through collective bargaining and collective action, just as we would for any other industrial issue. Those are the issues that are discussed in this report. We think that it sets out a positive agenda for the union ahead of GMB's first Disability Summit next year. Congress, please endorse the report. Thank you.
Well done, Dean. James Stribley, CC, Yorkshire North Derbyshire Region, is to second.
President Congress, James Stribley, proud to be a former employee worker and proud to be second the Special Disability Report on Supported Employment. Congress has debated Remploy many times, but I make no apology for that. For many years, might have passed since Remploy factories closed in 2013 and the workers were thrown on the scrap heap, but the sense of the injustice does not diminish with it. With time, it grows stronger. Congress, there were highly skilled GMB members at Remploy. They found dignity and fulfilment of their work, and they have not found employment since. Meanwhile, the promises that were made around redirecting the money into access to work have been broken. And Congress, we must never forget the Remploy and the disgracefully run-down Labour government before the Conservatives dealt the final blow. I'm proud of the role GMB played in fighting to save Remploy. We've fought because of it was the right thing to do. Now we have to fight for our future. New businesses like Enable Work and the York Disabled Workers. And another story where the factory in Wigan's just been shut down. Cooperative have raised from the ashes and the GMB support, but we also need a proper national supported employment model with dedicated funding to give disabled workers the choice of working in that environment. Is what they want? The report sets out the agenda. Congress, please support the report. It's an interesting report, so please read it.
Thank you, James. Well done. Okay, I'll now call on one speaker from each region that wishes to put up a speaker, and so Birmingham and first, please.
Good morning, Congress President. Paul Reimer, Birmingham West Midlands, first-time speaker, first-time delegate. Thanks ever so much. That's a surprise, that was. Thank you very much. I'm delighted to be supporting this report. It's my second year at Congress. Last year I sat up there. And Barbara, you're quite right, it looks different from me. But the chance of actually seeing the union machine working, I sat there probably for the first session thinking, what the bloody hell's going on? Apologies to the people watching. But as the session worked, and you got to understand what's going on, the machine works. And this report, I think, is a good example of a body of work that's been done to give activists in the union an actual guide to get out and campaign on behalf of the disabled. I would ask, as the motion movers, the report movers and the seconder, that you read the report. use it as a guide to go out into the workplace and campaign for the disabled people that need the support. Use the history that's in the report to look at the way GMB can continue to influence the way that disabled people are supported and live happy and productive lives. The report also looks at the hidden disease that colleagues are actually used as barriers in different ways. What the report is asking us to do is to build a campaign that builds material that will help us to campaign in the workplace and support colleagues with such disabilities and conditions as diabetes, Crohn's disease and irritable bowel. Because colleagues, I'm sure you've been the same as me, that you've been representing members that have been disciplined for high Bradford scores. Well, the conditions that I've mentioned are the ones that are being missed, and this is the way to stop the discrimination and exclusion. The exclusion and discrimination, a true equal society cannot be achieved until we've stopped the disability and exclusion and discrimination, and GMB are determined to play that part in it. Congress, please support the report.
Well done, Paul. Spot on time. Well done. London Region, please.
President Congress, Nikki Waugh, London Region, speaking on the Disability and Supported Employment Report. I asked to speak on this report as, like many others with hidden disabilities, our challenges are often unrecognised simply because of them not being visible. Looking at me, standing here, you may think to yourself, she doesn't look disabled. But in fact, I broke my back and I stand here before you with titanium rods holding my spine together. So, it's a life of constant pain and loss of full mobility. But like with most disabled people, life goes on. However, for some individuals, the removal of social payments by this inept Tory government eroded what semblance of life they had, resulting in many taking their own lives. To this end, I'm pleased that the report recognises hidden disabilities and that we will campaign to raise awareness in this area. Likewise, we welcome the recognition given to the Labour Party for their policy work and the launching of our own GMB campaigns and the new disability platforms. We are pleased with the statement that we are determined to ensure supported businesses have access to the necessary support for disabled workers, and that we are committed to improving upon our disability campaigning work, both now and in the future. But the report should have gone further to explain how we will build upon our campaigning work, incorporating more disability-related training for our reps. We have also noted there is very little in the way of recommendations. The fundamental questions of what, how, and when need to be addressed. But perhaps this will be forthcoming in the not-too-distant future. What is clear is that the report has focused heavily on the past and very little on the future. The chair of our Regional Disability Forum, Gordon Brunning, has been quite insistent that I raise the following points, which of course I'm happy to do. The report in general lacks detail in its approach to supported employment. Using the Remploy model, the report lacks teeth and vision, and we welcome a more effective solution to the long-term issue of meaningful employment for disabled workers. The report should have gone further, with National Office working much closer with regional equality forums and self-organised groups. We cannot and should not treat the report as words on a page, but it must be matched by our own actions and commitments to an all-inclusive, diverse and equality-led trade union. Gordon's final point is that our union needs to be more visionary, and we welcome an opportunity to provide a contribution. To conclude, the London region welcomes the CEC special report and would like to thank all those who contributed to it.
Thank you, Nicola. Well done. Midlands and East Coast, please.
President, Congress, Debashis Day, first time speaker, first time delegate. Brothers and sisters, I'm speaking in support of the CEC Special Report on Disability and Supported Employment. Stats show that 1 in 5 people in the UK workplace have a disability of some sort. I watched with total sadness and horror as successive governments systematically dismantled supported employment in schemes such as Remploy. We campaigned hard to stop this disgrace of our generation, but colleagues, we failed. Many of these members who were given support, friendship, and most importantly, dignity through supported employment are still not working to this day, and there are many who suffer from depression. Colleagues, it is time to right this wrong and allow those who wish to work in supported employment to have an opportunity to do so, but not driven through economic necessity. There are also those who may not wish to be in supported employment, but we will still support them in their wishes and in their abilities to make the most of their abilities. But we have to support and integrate those people who wish it into the mainstream and with supported employment. And as an inclusive trade union, this is an issue for all of us. Although we seem to have made strides in this area, since Tory austerity began in 2010, almost 6,000 people have died within 6 months of being declared fit for work following a work capability test. This is a backward step and one that we cannot sit back and allow to continue. Finally, let our people work with dignity and work safely, and allow those who struggle to work with a disability to have access and help and support as fellow human beings they deserve. Congress, please support this motion.
Well done, thank you. Northern Region speaker, please. Thank you, Northern Region. North West and Irish Region.
President, Congress. How proud I am, 6 years further on since the last factory of Remploy closure, to see our GMB fighting and campaigning for supported employment. I hope, Barbara, you continue in Murray's legacy, kicking our backside, pushing us and shoving us, continue to fight with the Labour Party, hoping we can get this through. What a pleasure to be here. Joe Smith, member of Wigan H7 branch, North Western Irish Region, former Employ Consortium, supporting this special report on supported employment. This report, produced by National Office, is most welcome and a step in the right direction. Congress, I can say firsthand that it is now far harder for the disabled person to get a job with decent pay and conditions and with security. As a non-paid director of York Disabled Workers Cooperative, a small workshop in York, employing only disabled people, we see every week disabled people coming to our factory trying to find the jobs. With proof this proves that the government have failed in provisions of supported employment. We see parents with grown-up teenagers with learning difficulties and physical health conditions coming to the factory, looking for a few hours respite, hoping their child can come and volunteer. But this comes at a price, it comes at a cost, and unfortunately, we have to say no. I would like to thank my region, North Western Irish region, for the tremendous continuing support campaigning for employ and supporting disabled people into work. A huge thank you for providing and supporting York Disabled Workers Cooperative. We would not be here if it wasn't for my region. Thank you, Paul. Thank you, Dougie, and all my regional committee. Enable Works in Leeds employs more than 30 people in the packaging production. This factory would be non-existent if it wasn't for former employee worker Tony Gledhill and his partner, former employee factory manager Tina Brown, and a dedicated group of 13 former employee workers who put £5,000 of the redundancy to start this factory up in Leeds. I would like to thank the Yorkshire region in supporting Enable Works, in assisting in finding new contracts. Enable Works then moving the non-food production products over to York. This way there's more benefits for both factories. These small factories need support, and it must come from central government and not from handouts and charities. We take the Poppy Factory in Richmond, a charity for veterans with physical and mental health condition. They believe the veterans should love the work they do, but with some people, mental health and physical conditions find it tough to stay in employment. Men and women who have served this country have a wealth of experience and transferable skills that can be a huge benefit to any business. UCEL is a Northern Ireland's largest supporter of people with disabilities or health conditions into employment, a company very supportive to trade unions and that is recognised by the GMB trade union. It operates a social enterprise business model that exists solely to help disability and health-related conditions move into sustained employment. Every year, they employ and train over 1,200 people with disabilities and health conditions across Northern Ireland. They get no fund whatsoever from central government. It's all down to public procurement with local authorities and winning contracts across Northern Ireland. None of these four companies win contracts because people feel sorry for disabled people. They win contracts because of the ability and dedication providing a substantial product all made by disabled people. We demand funds are made available from central government to use by local authorities to set up and support these workplaces that employ the majority of disabled people and pay the real national wage by subsidy of each person employed. Each social enterprise should also have public procurement available. Congress, it was a Labour government that set up Employ. Let it be a Labour government that can again set up disabled people into work. Bevin said, we'll never allow disabled people to live in poverty and stand on our street corners, selling whatever they can to survive. We will find protection. Let me say, government, this government have done nothing but destroy Bevin's words. As I speak, there's more and more homeless people. A large percentage have served our Queen and country, left to rot, and the only way they find is by surviving on handouts. Congress, this is just a start. Our next step is to knock on the doors of Parliament, get the message across and send it to our Shadow Chancellor. He promised us a commitment at the North West Justice Conference. Let's take him to his word. Let the battle cry begin. Please support this special motion. I support employment.
Thank you for that. That was really good. But there's also the York Disabled Workers Co-op stall. If you haven't been there yet, go and visit it. There are other exhibitors available. But now can I have GMB Scotland, please?
Thank you. You'll go sit. Good morning, President, comrades, Pat Duffy, GMB Scotland. One of our members, officers, had written a speech out for me, but I find it very difficult to stand up here with a magnifier, and my eyes won't stay on the same place all the time. I'm been visually impaired since birth. I'm now registered blind. I also have hidden disabilities, if you like. I'm diabetic and I have cancer. But I started work in 1960. There was no protection for disabled people. I remember in Glasgow when blind and disabled people were carted about in grey buses with the windows blacked out so as they didn't sound other people who could see, like kids with Down syndrome and all the other things. We have moved on a bit. And I say a bit. I was going to say, every time I say Tory government, I want to be sick, so I'll not say it again. But re-employ, you know, there's people who cannot work in mainstream employment. Blind people, the RNIB ran a survey of 12 employers and asked them if they would employ a blind person. 12 of them said no. So what chance has a blind person got? In Glasgow, we have a workshop which is supported by the local council. They make kitchens, bedding, all different. They get different contracts for the council, and they make a profit. So re-employ was a good place for people who can't work in mainstream employment. I worked in mainstream employment all my life because I conned my way through it. That's as simple as that. I couldn't tell my employers in those days that I couldn't see very well because they just threw me out the door. I remember representing a girl who was blind, and she was a physiotherapist, and she was applying for a job slightly higher up. And they took her to this room and showed her where everything was. Now, when that girl went back for the actual interview, they had moved the furniture all around about, and that was a local council. You know, I was a shop steward, and I can assure you I had a few words to say about it. But re-employ was a good thing in the sense that the people who couldn't work outside had somewhere to work. The last speaker spoke about kids coming to visit and get a few hours respite. I go up to a college, Commonwealth College, every month, and all the Down syndrome kids and that, they all come over and talk to us. They've got somewhere to go, but they'll no work unless it's in a charity shop working for free, you know, just for a couple of hours to give their family a wee bit of respite, you know. But I ask you to read the report. If there's things in it that you think need improved, fine. But at least we've got this report, you know, and we can only move on from here. You know, I go to disabled conferences and I hear people talking about being bullied and frightened their employer. I've never been bullied or frightened of an employer in my life. Never. You know, I would have pulled them out. And that is solely because I'm a member of the GMB, and I was trained by the GMB in Manchester College. I covered every issue that there was to cover. And I faced managers and I faced councillors and everything else. And sometimes I wanted to pull them out of the top of the table and thump them, but that's not allowed nowadays. You can't do that now. You know? And it's this thing with ATOS and the benefits. Way back years ago, you used to get what it called invalidity benefit. My mammy called it infidelity money. So she did, aye. I thought, that's great, Mum. Tell my wife I'm getting infidelity money. But the ATOS thing is a disgrace. Nurses who know nothing about people's health are telling people they're fit to work. Only blind people never ever received DLA until 2011 when the Labour government came in and they changed it. The DWP said that seeing was not a bodily function. Think of that, how clever is that? That's the people who are running these things. But I ask you, please, I'm not going to go on anymore. I ask you to read the report, and if you've got this, again, I thank the members of GMB Scotland. I couldn't come here without the members to looking after me. And travelling, the accessibility to trains, you know, and buses. That's another thing, talking buses. I'd love to talk to you about talking buses, like the trains have got. Because I go on buses, I get after the wrong stop, and ask somebody where I'm going, and the first thing is, they say, see that light down there, son? I've got a guide dog at my feet. Yeah, I say, it's true. It's a fact. Honest, sighted people don't understand. I don't blame them. A wee woman down in Bournemouth, I said, I got lost for a hotel. I was 2 hours lost. And this wee lady, I said to her, tell me where this hotel is. She said, see these 2 green bins down there, son? Just follow them. And just about beside that. Like, God love them. Sighted people don't understand. But I ask you to support the report. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Pat. That was great. Thank you. Southern region.
Emily Brothers, Southern Region, supporting CE's statement on disabled people and supported employment. Southern Region welcomes the statement on disabled people and supported employment. We believe it sets the basis and the foundations for taking forward our policy in this area. It commits to the social model of disability. However, much of the following narrative, unfortunately, perhaps takes the pattern of the medical model around people's conditions. So as the delegate for London suggested, more work needs to be done in terms of our thinking and the practical proposals that go from this statement forward to form our longer-term policies and practices and informs the next Labour government. It is important to frame that around the social model. GMB is rightly ambitious for mainstream employment of disabled people. However, supported employment can provide meaningful work for some disabled people, such as those that are enabled workers. So I say to Joe Smith from York Disabled Workers Cooperative and his colleagues who spoke this morning that in this debate that you are playing a valuable contribution to the British economy. And as a trade union, we will fight for you to continue to play an important role in both local and national economic prosperity. Disabled people have a role to contribute, and GMB has a role to support disabled people in that. Closures driven by a Tory government of Remploy and other supported employment schemes means that disabled people need an alternative, and that is an alternative radical Labour government to bring about supported employment, but also to enshrine broader rights through the United Nations Convention on the Rights of Disabled People into UK law in the way that a previous Labour government did with the Human Rights Act, to legislate for the right to independent living, to mandate disability pay reporting and reasonable adjustment passports, the latter being very much led by GMB, to fund access to work support and scrap capability tests and punitive sanctions that are driving disabled people deeper into poverty. We also need to build on the Equality Act 2010, not to push it aside because that might run the risk of the Tories seeking to dismantle it, but to build on and change the definition to reflect the social model, to bring about greater enforcement around the built environment and transport, and to extend the public sector duty to the private sector and membership organisations too. So there is a significant agenda going forward for GMB to seek to influence, but also for a future Labour government to implement. We need to build on what is in place already in terms of the Equality Act, changing the definition, bringing about new clauses that affect change, but also seeking to revise other elements that will also take account of disabled people from other groups too. Congress, it was 100 years next year, will mark the march of blind people from Newport, Manchester and Leeds, who marched in 1920 to Trafalgar Square on a campaign for the collective bargaining rights of blind workers in supported employment. We will mark the century. This was a precursor to marches like the Jarrow marches that came years later. And those proud disabled people who were seeking to work and provide for their families in supported employment carried a banner that said, "Justice, not charity." 100 years later, that's what disabled people from GMB and across the labour and trade union movement are asking for in contributing to our economy. It's about working, be given the tools to work. Congress, please support this statement. Please forward the campaign going forward and continue to support disabled people. Justice, not charity. Thank you.
No, thank you, Emily. We thank you, Emily. Wales and South West, please.
Bodada, good morning. President, Congress, fellow Gooner. Paul Kempton, GMB Wales and South West, pleased to be speaking in support of this CEC special report. As the document makes clear, this is a complex and challenging subject area. Rightly, the report reminds us that the GMB and the wider union movement have long endorsed the social model of disability and rejects the medical model. I and others are disabled by the barrier society erects to our full participation, not because of any impairments. This report, together with our recent guidance on reasonable adjustment passports, on neurodiversity and conditions such as autism, dyspraxia and dyslexia, and the comprehensive training on supporting members with mental health issues, shows that we are the cutting-edge union in this field. The report is comprehensive, but we can't rest on our laurels. We need to continue to find a vision that truly embraces all disabled. We want more guidance publications, and we need to learn from the experience of Remploy and Enabled Works, and others to find a model for supportive employment. Why? Because as this report clearly demonstrates, there is a disability pay gap and there is a disability employment gap. I retire from paid work at the end of this month, and my disability has not prevented me from paying my full tax liability for 50 years, and that's more than something that Philip Green can say. We live in austere times. Thank you. We live in austere times. Hate crime is on the rise, often fueled by government-fed intolerance and media untruths about the luxury life on benefits. Since 2010, we have seen major reversals of previous gains. PIP is a nightmare. ESA is blatantly abused by private companies making eligibility decisions they clearly aren't competent to make. Congress, there is so much good stuff in this report that it makes it impossible to detail in the time. I will, however, flag up one issue of importance to me, if I may. On page 5, paragraph 211, it refers to physical barriers. All, and I mean all, GMB buildings, whether owned, rented or hired, must be fully accessible to everyone. There is a motion on the agenda that refers to this from the National Equalities Conference. Accessible means included. Not accessible means excluded. For me, that means having a fully functioning induction loop. Sadly, that isn't always the case. Please read this report, digest and engage your disabled members in seeking further progress. GMB Wales and South West supports. We hope you do too. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Paul. Thanks, Paul. Yorkshire and North Derbyshire region.
Philip Steer for Yorkshire and North Derbyshire region. Thank you. Speaking on special report about disability and supported employment. President, Congress. I've got a script here done for me by region. However, a lot in this has been said by other members this morning, right? So I hate reading off a script, off a speech, right? I didn't start in work disabled. I've ended up like this over the last 5 years. And I tell you what, my company that I work for have been good for me. They've made an alternative job for me. But that's not right for a lot of companies. A lot of companies will get rid of you if you have any sort of disability. And trying to get back into employment is a nightmare. So this report is a good one, but it's only a start. Let's try to keep it going. Thank you. I support.
Thank you, Philip. Thank you to all those speakers, because that's a really useful and important debate to have. I can now put the special report to a vote. All those in favour, please show. That's unanimous. Okay. Thank you. We're now on to employment policy, equality and inclusion. We will now debate the first group of motions on employment policy, equality and inclusion. 3 regions are represented in Composite 7 on menopause policies, and all 3 regions will be invited to speak. But please can speakers on the next group of motions also make themselves ready. That is on Composite 9 and 10, motions 131, 134 and 136, and then those motions will be debated next. So mover and seconder of motion 118, please.
Before I start, I just want to say a big thank you to Ida from our region. I had really big problems trying to get this printed this morning. It wouldn't go on a memory stick, and I was panicking and stressing, and she managed to pull it through. So thank you very much, Ida. I really appreciate that. Okay, so Ricky Jones, North West London branch, moving, motion 118, efficiency, pay gap reporting, ethnicity pay gap reporting, sorry. President, conference. The government has asked employers to disclose their ethnicity pay gap. To date, less than 5% of large companies have made an effort to analyse the pay gap. Conference, this simply isn't good enough. Do we need a report to tell us that BAME workers are not progressing up the ladder to higher paid employment compared to their white counterparts? No, we don't. Do we also need the same report to identify BAME workers holding the highest amount of low-paid and unskilled jobs? No, we don't. And why is this? Because this is probably visible in each and every one of your workplaces. But do we need this report so we can beat them with the GMB stick? Yes, we do. The government has said it is likely to make a requirement in the future. Well, I say they need to make it a requirement here and now. BAME employees have suffered far too long, and they shouldn't have to suffer 1 minute longer. We need joint investigations between GMB and all employers. If the employer doesn't cooperate, we should produce our own union-led survey of all our members. GMB to lead the way also in reporting our findings to the TUC, also encouraging other trade unions to do the same. Publish the findings to our branch officers, our reps, and campaign materials explaining the issues which lead to the gap. Call on the Labour Party to work with us to develop policies which ensure that employers must report on their pay gap by putting in place measures to combat this across the economy. Conference, we cannot trust our employers to make the necessary changes to close the gap of BAME workers. To make this happen, we must do what is bullet pointed within the motion. This is the type of stick that we shall beat the employer with finally and get justice for the BAME workers. Conference, I move. Please support this motion.
Thank you, Ricky. Thank you. Seconder for motion 118. Thank you. Composite 5. Speaker on Composite 5.
President Congress, Taranjit Chana, moving motion Composite 5, the race pay gap. Congress is now over 50 years since the Race Relations Act. In 2017, this Tory government published its race parity audit, telling us something that we already knew. The workplace is an area where progress is much needed. We know that Black, Asian, minority, ethnic, BAME people are doing better in education and attending college and university in high numbers. Yet, success at school and university is not translating into the workplace. 52% of BME people feel they need to leave their work organisations to progress elsewhere, in comparison to 38% of white workers. Also, BAME people are not represented as they should be in leadership roles. For example, in the NHS, BAME representation in leadership roles is 6%. In the police force at chief inspector level, it's 3%, and with head teachers, it's 2%. The race pay audit is not about quotas or promoting people who don't deserve it. It's about identifying the steps to take to improve fairness in the workplace. Congress, we need to start at home with an audit of our union and use that data in a positive way to help to take the steps to end inequality, unfairness in the workplace for BAME people. So Congress, please support this motion.
Thank you, Taranjit. Second.
President, Congress, Fevzi Hussain, London Region, second in Composite 5 on the race pay equality gap. Delegates, the trade union movement has rightly been championing the challenges and the financial injustices facing women at work. Facts around the gender pay gap are now much better known as a result of the active campaigns that we've been running. In the workplaces, we know mothers are losing out while fathers are benefiting. So when it comes to race, why have we not been more proactive in highlighting pay injustices when we talk about the race pay gap? The workplace is showing even greater differentials when it comes to our BAME brothers and sisters. Race for Opportunity recently reported that Black, Asian and minority ethnic BAME workers make up a disproportionate number of people in low-paid jobs, as the sister has said, with almost a quarter, 23% of Pakistani employees and a fifth of Bangladeshi, Chinese and Black Caribbean workers earning less than £25,000 per year. It also found that white employees has an average of almost 4 promotions during their career, compared to just 2.5 for British, African, Indian and Pakistani employees. The resolution foundation also found that Britain's 1.9 million BAME workers are experiencing an annual pay penalty of £3.2 billion, according to the new analysis. The foundation says that the scale of the pay penalties facing BAME workers should prompt government action, including building on the success of its requirements for firms to report gender pay gaps by making large firms report on their BAME pay gaps too. The foundation notes that BAME workers have long earned less on average than white male workers, as Taranjit has said. So the GMB is calling for a campaign to raise more awareness of this pay gap and its effects. We're calling on the government to make mandatory reporting on the race pay gap a requirement for employers with more than 50 workers. There should be meaningful penalties for those not disclosing this data and for failing to close the ethnicity gap. There are a number of strong recommendations associated with this motion, all of which will help us to address this racial inequality and achieve justice for BAME workers everywhere. I second.
Brilliant, Fevzi, thank you. Composite 6.
President, Congress, Stella Ikanik, London Region, first-time delegate and second-time speaker. Moving motion Composite 6 on gender pay gap. This Congress recognizes that in 2017, government introduced legislation that made it statutory for all organizations with 250 or more employees to report annually on their gender pay gap. The gender pay gap shows the difference in the average pay between all men and all women in a workforce overall. The gender pay gap is concerned with differences in the average earnings of men and women over a standard time period, regardless of their seniority. It is a measure which therefore captures not only historic and structural equality pay issues within an organization, but also any pay inequalities resulting from differences in the types of jobs performed by men and women. Congress, please note that the gender pay gap is different to equal pay. Equal pay deals with the pay difference between men and women who carry out the same jobs, similar jobs, or work of equal value. Across the UK, men earn 18.4% more than women as of June 2018, according to the Office of National Statistics. The current gender pay gap means women effectively earn less than men in Britain today. Congress, please allow me to bring this closer to home. You may not believe this, but it's concerning that our own GMB Union's data collected on the 5th of April 2018, when the workforce consisted of a total of 589 staff, that is 348 women and 247 men. The data showed that on the 5th of April 2018, GMB had a median gender pay gap of 31.2% and a mean of 25.9%. However, there are some variations in the number of men and women employed at different grades across GMB. GMB employs higher numbers of women than men in the lower level jobs, and a higher number of men in the higher level jobs. That means that GMB has more men at senior levels and more women at junior roles. Congress, if a workforce has a particularly high gender pay gap like ours, this can indicate that there may be a number of issues to deal with. In terms of recruitment, progression, promotion, and pay. I believe this Congress would agree with me that GMB should lead by example and commit to work on closing the gender pay gap. After all, charity begins at home. Congress, please support this motion.
Well done, Stella. Thank you. Seconder.
President Congress, Pushpa Makwana, London Region, seconding motion, Composite 6 on gender pay gap. Congress, the gender pay gap is one of the greatest illustrators of gender equality in the world of work. Unions have an important part to play in ending disparity between men and women's wages. Women continue to work underrepresented in traditionally men-occupied industries which pay more. Congress, work performed by women is frequently undervalued and underpaid, either because it mirrors work or has traditionally been carried out by women at home, or simply because women are paid less for the work of equal value. In occupation, which has gradually become dominated by women, such as primary school teaching assistant salaries, has relatively declined for both men and women. Once a profession is defined as predominantly female, it is undervalued and overworked. GMB must challenge gender stereotypes and social norms that limit women's access to labor market and equality jobs and contribute to gender segregation. The more centralized and collective bargaining processes, the smaller the pay gap. We should demand great democracy and transparency of wages and salary scales, and consider how to extend minimum wages and collective bargaining to cover female-dominated sector, as well as informal or precarious workers who are mainly women-led. Congress, GMB should lead an example on women's representation in decision-making bodies, and it is at the negotiation tables to get a better deal for women in the workplace.
Pushpa, you've got the red light. I'm going to have to be tough now. Yeah,
right. Equality importance of women representation in union leadership and collective bargaining, which is negotiated outcome benefit women's worker. Please support this motion.
Thank you, Pushpa. Thank you. Sorry, I'm going to have to be tight on time now, yeah? So just make sure you look ahead. Composite 7, London to move, Scotland to second, and then Southern third, please.
Hello. Leslie Stansfield, London Region, moving Composite 7. First time delegate and first time mover. Right. President, Congress. I have a story to tell, a story of blood, sweat and tears. Once upon a time, a very frightened 10-year-old started to bleed in the classroom. The male teacher, flustered and embarrassed, rushed her to a female teacher and was told, deal with it. Singled out as some weird oddity, she was ostracised, considered unclean and ridiculed. Forward 50 years, and that embarrassed little girl now stands before you, ashamed once again. Not because I bleed, I don't, menopause has put a stop to that, but because the humiliation, embarrassment, ridicule is still here, alive and kicking, in the workplace. We are told that menstruation and menopause issues are something that women should deal with and not be part of employment rights. That absence due to the debilitating conditions suffered by some men and some women and trans men should be counted against them. That toilet breaks and supply of sanitary ware are no concern of management. If women didn't have periods, a whole fecking lot of them wouldn't be here. Right. The GMB Sisters survey found that 84% of respondents did not have access to any sanitary products in the workplace. Now the sweat. Oh yeah, the sweat. That feeling you get as the heat rises, headaches, dizziness, faltering speech. It may sound funny, but you try coping with the menopause at a supermarket till where your official break isn't for another 30 minutes, or in a meeting with colleagues who thinks it's a joke. You are the butt of degrading comments, put-downs and made to feel an outcast. We go home crying, we resign from our jobs, we hear the tumbleweed of silence when we ask for action. But now we demand change, and we have the tools to do it. GMB Sisters have produced a comprehensive and practical menstruation to menopause, M2M, workplace policy to support women and trans men in the workplace, to radically change how issues around menstruation and menopause are dealt with, to provide training sessions promoting a taboo-free culture, to ensure adequate provisions are made, toilet breaks, sanitary ware, flexible ways of working, workplace adjustments, to allow reasonable penalty-free sick leave, and to finally show that the old Victorian attitude of not talking about it has been flushed down the pan. And it's all here in this beautifully crafted 3-page policy, just 3 pages of a groundbreaking, history-making policy, and GMB can do it. GMB Sisters and Dawn Butler MP are working together in consultation with Brent Council to get this policy borough-wide. Milton Keynes Council are in negotiations with our GMB comrades to implement this policy. It can be done, so get the policy in the workplace. Give hope to our members by showing that GMB are listening, and do something to end the discrimination that comes with ignoring menstruation and menopause as workplace issues. I move this motion.
Thank you, Leslie. GMB Scotland to second.
Thank you, President. Congress. Fiona Branscombe, first time speaker, seconding consent 7 on behalf of GMB Scotland. Congress, GMB Scotland has been leading the way in getting menopause policies adopted in our workplace. GMB members have been raising the profile of menopause through the Scottish TUC Women's Committee. As a result, it has been brought to light in Parliament and in the media. Our focus, however, is always on the workplace. GMB Scotland conducted a menopause survey amongst our own staff last year, and we have now pushed our members' employers to do the same. We now have employers such as South Lanarkshire Council adopting formal menopause and workplace policies as a direct result of campaigning led by GMB Scotland reps. South Lanarkshire Council employs more than 1,000 women. 68% of these women are over the age of 40. As a result of the new policy being put in place, these women will benefit from provisions of cold drinking water, quiet area and time out or time to take a walk outside. Women experiencing menopause symptoms will also have access to flexible working arrangements, counselling. All managers are being trained in menopause awareness, and the Council has undertaken to raise awareness of symptoms and respond to all employers to encourage more women and men to take the menopause serious. Willing challenges in the workplace based on the priority of our members and their real life experience, pushing the bargain agenda into new areas. Our ambition is becoming the voice of world-class women in Scotland, is that we make our union strong and successful. Congress, please back this composite.
Well done, Fiona, thank you. Southern.
Hello, this is Julie Meinald speaking for Southern Region, supporting Composite Motion 7. First-time delegate, first-time speaker. President, Congress. Between mood swings and added stress, menopause can be a minefield for even the strongest of family and personal relationships. Through the journey of menopause, friends and family will sometimes express concern about their ability to offer the right support. This can sometimes lead to feelings of getting things wrong when it comes to saying or doing the right thing. Younger members of your family in particular can be left wondering, why? What have I done wrong? And this puts additional strain on relationships within the family group and outside of the family group as well. Menopause has particular issues for members of the LGBT community. There can be a lack of professional knowledge as well as employer awareness, so these members will particularly struggle to access the most relevant support. This will leave these members unprepared for everything that comes with menopause, adding weight to the difficulties they often experience in the workplace. As a union, we must ensure that reps and staff receive the best possible training to enable them to offer sound support and effective guidance. Courses have been designed and delivered and need to be considered for adoption as part of the education programme offered to members. Our union has a role to play in challenging attitudes and ensuring that employers have the right procedures in place. With good training, workplace reps can raise issues and ensure that the workplace is a risk assessed to meet the needs of all employees going through the menopause. I have experienced
Julie,
the journey.
Julie, I know you're first.
Sorry.
You've got a red light. Yeah, can you just close?
2 seconds.
Yeah, 2 seconds. No, 2 seconds.
I've experienced the journey of the menopause, and during that time, I more than once recalled as a young person visiting my granny and seeing her neighbour, Mrs. Higgins, at the back door looking flushed and wafting a tea towel on the front of her face. I remember asking
Julie,
her...
can you, can you wind
That's
up,
fair.
please?
Conversations about the change still go on. There's a way to go, so can I ask you to support this motion? Thank you, I move.
Thank you, I'm sorry. Can I call mover of motion 124, please?
My name is Anne Jones from the London region, moving motion 124, the menopause and andropause. President, Congress. For those who are not aware, the andropause is the name given to the male version of the menopause. Some groups disapprove with this name as it suggests a sudden drop in hormone levels similar to that of the menopause, when it is in fact a gradual process. Although the term andropause is controversial, as some research and medical journals refer to the male menopause as the andropause, for the purpose of Congress, we'll do the same. Both the menopause and andropause are natural processes in an adult's life. For some, it is as a result of illness, but for most, it is the next phase of our being after puberty and childbirth. Many women of menopausal age will have manageable effects or none at all, while for some it can be debilitating. The majority of men will have no effects or suffer in silence with the manageable effects, but again, for a very few, it can be debilitating. So why are people so reluctant to speak about it? Why are people embarrassed about it? Raising awareness can alleviate the stigma attached to this condition, and we have seen this already happening as a result of media coverage. However, the real issue lies within the workplace, where managers fail to recognise that these conditions are included in acts and regulations which state that employers must protect the health, safety and welfare of all employees. Management's lack of knowledge and blatant disregard for this issue is disadvantaging our members and putting them at risk and exposure to being victimised and harassed. Some of our members have complained about their managers not understanding their situations, that they are dismissive and unsupportive in this instance. Many found themselves being placed on capability for sickness or performance-related issues and denied the most basic requests, such as being placed near a lavatory, allowed more frequent breaks, given a desk fan, or the installation of a water cooler in the office. Such failures could result in claims against the employer, such as in the case of Merchant versus BT at the Employment Tribunal. Ms. Merchant was dismissed following a final warning for poor performance. She had previously given her manager a letter from her doctor explaining that she was going through the menopause and that it could affect her level of concentration at times. The manager chose not to carry out any further investigation of her symptoms in breach of BT's performance management policy. The tribunal upheld her claim of direct sex discrimination and unfair dismissal and held that the manager could never have adopted this bizarre and irrational approach with other non-female related conditions. The manager also wrongly decided that his wife's experience was apparently relevant evidence for his employees. This clearly shows that workplaces need to be educated. Congress, we are calling for a change to working practices and to make it mandatory for places of work to hold awareness workshops, train their managers and change their policies and procedures to include the menopause and andropause. I move.
Thank you, Stella. Seconder.
My name is Pamela Belgrave, seconding motion 124, London Region, President, Congress. 2 years ago, a few of our members approached us as they were experiencing the effects of the menopause and felt that their managers were not supportive and that they felt bullied and harassed. One of our members felt that she was not able to discuss her concerns and symptoms with her male manager, which resulted in her being placed under capability for her work. We dealt with the issue and a few more, but we realised that more needed to be done. We decided to organise an event in 2017, giving staff the opportunity to learn more about the menopause and andropause, and provided them with information in leaflets, booklets and a slideshow. In addition to this, that same year, we provided training for managers on the effects of the menopause and andropause. We were asked again in 2018 to provide more training to the managers that were unable to attend. This time we held a couple of workshops throughout the day as we had lots of interest. By us raising awareness and joint discussions with staff and management over the last 2 years, we have seen dramatic change in how staff suffering from both conditions are now being treated fairly by management. At present, we are in the process of negotiating a change to all our policies and procedures, but we would like to secure recognition of this issue and to ensure that no room for managers making excuses and not supporting their staff. I second.
Thank you, Pamela. Does anyone wish to speak against any of those motions? No? Can then I ask Elaine Daly from the CEC to give our response, please?
President, Congress. Elaine Daly speaking on behalf of the CEC on motions 118, Composite 5 and motion 124. On motion 118, ethnicity pay gap, we fully support the intent of this motion. In addition to asking GMB to campaign externally, which will need to be in line with our resources, the motion calls for GMB to undertake internal work. We request that the motion be referred to the CEC Organisation Subcommittee to investigate the practical implications of this point. On Composite 5, reporting the race pay gap, which covers motions 119, 120, the CEC is supporting with a qualification. We fully support the intent of this motion and commit to taking action, but the qualification is that this has to be in line with resources and a national plan for equality. On motion 124, the menopause and andropause, the CEC is supporting with a qualification. Many regions have developed campaigns and policies around the menopause. Currently, the Equality and Inclusion Department is developing a bargaining toolkit that will include best practice and model policies on supporting members in the workplace experiencing the menopause. Qualification is that the NHS has disputed the labelling of certain mental and physical health disruptions that men experience in their middle age as linked to an andropause. The CEC is therefore wishing to use caution in using the term andropause, but keep abreast of medical terms that the NHS provides. That being said, GMB has for a long time campaigned for better mental health in the workplace and produced guidance for members and reps on tackling this important issue for members of all genders. Therefore, Congress, the CEC is asking for motion 118 to be referred and for Composite 5 and motion 124 to be supported with the qualifications I have outlined. Thank you.
Okay, there's a slight difference of opinion up here. Does London Region accept the qualification on Composite 5? Yes, thank you. Does London Region also accept the qualification on 124? Yes? Yes, thank you. Sorry, I didn't hear. I'm just checking. I'll do the vote on Composite 5. All those in favour, please show. Anyone against? That's carried. I'll do the motion on Composite 6, which the CEC are supporting. Okay, thank you. You're ahead of me. Anyone against? Thank you. Composite 7, again, we're supporting. All those in favour, please show. Anyone against? Motion 124, they've accepted the qualification. All those in favour, please show. Thank you. Anyone against? Go back to 118. London Region, do you accept the reference back? Yeah? Yes? Yep, thank you. Okay, all those in favour, please show. Anyone against? Thank you. We can now debate the second group of motions on employment policy, equality and inclusion, but please can speakers on the next group of motions please prepare themselves. That is motions 97, 99, 101, 102, 103 and 104. Thank you. Mover of Composite 9, please.
President, Congress, Janice Barwick, Northern Region, first-time delegate, first-time speaker. Moving Composite 9, Congress, our campaign about thinking differently at work, it's really important to any worker trying to cope with their dyspraxia. Dyspraxia is linked to problems with spatial awareness. People with dyspraxia also have problems, may have problems with their eye coordination. People with dyspraxia can and do devise ways of coping with their daily tasks. Many people do not understand that dyspraxia happens before you're born. A person with dyspraxia may have also been diagnosed with other conditions such as autism. Congress, while the work to help people with dyspraxia has improved, some great work's taken place. The fact that out there in the workplace, in schools, in colleges, there's still a lot of ignorance about the condition. There are some great role models, such as our Labour MP in our region, Emma Llewellyn-Book. She will tell you that as a child, she was told she was clumsy, she was naughty when she went to school. Then, after working in industry for 6 years, Emma got herself a social work qualification. She wasn't diagnosed with dyspraxia until the age of 27. She then became a Labour MP just a few years later. Emma is a shining light, telling people they can achieve whatever they want to achieve, they can do whatever they want to do, and they can be whoever they want to be, despite the system failing them. Many have been written off, but if we can get our party, the Labour Party, to commit to include our campaign in its policies for the next election, we have a lot of hope. And with the union's help, we can give members and their families a brighter and better future. Please support.
Thank you, Janice. Seconder.
Conference. President. Ricky Jones, North West London branch. I am a dyslexic, and as a child I suffered from dyspraxia. I remember trying to bowl a cricket ball ahead of me and always ending up over there. I remember when we played football, instead of going round the people, I would go through them like they were 10-pin bowling and knock them all over. So those are some of the things. I couldn't do up my shoelaces until I got into the juniors. Dyspraxic people have these issues. It was classed when I was at school as the clumsy child syndrome. Well, it's difficult for those people to have to face that. As a dyslexic, I remember in school being told I was lazy or I was stupid. As an adult, it took me until I was 41, I'm now 53 now, to be diagnosed with dyslexia. In that time, I have become a Labour councillor. Thank you. I have 3 diplomas, level 4, and I'm a trade union official for my own union, as well as being proud to be part of the GMB. Neurodiversity has come a long way, but we still have a long way to go. People who suffer from neurodiverse conditions do get support within the workplace from an organisation called Access to Work, but they are supporting at the level that they are already working. What happens when those people want to go for promotion? They either have to do it on their own or they don't have the confidence. I am one of those people. I've been an organiser at the very lowest level for 10 years, not having the confidence to go up the ladder. We need to do more to support people going up the ladder, and so does Access to Work Conference. Please support the motion.
Thank you, Ricky. Thank you. Mover of motion 131.
You don't mind if I do this for a minute, do you? Old-time delegate, old-time speaker. Can you see that? Can you see that? Kevin Flanagan, North Western Irish region. Old-time delegate, old-time speaker. Congress, I am pleased to move this very important motion. In a way, the motion has been overtaken by the developments since we drafted this at the end of last year. I pay tribute to the GMB and its excellent disability report, which we've just debated. Well done, brilliant report. I also pay tribute to all those who've worked on the reasonable adjustment and the neurodiversity in the workplace toolbook. If you haven't got it, get it. I went to the workshop yesterday. What an excellent piece of work, sister. Seriously. This, he comes up, he wrecks the stage, he does everything, but if you haven't got that, take it with you. It's a vital toolkit. Congress, 391,000 disabled workers, that is 1 in 10 disabled people, dropped out of the UK workforce last year. A further 555,000 disabled workers, 1 in 7, started work again last year. The introduction of reasonable adjustment disability passports is essential. It will help over 1 million workers in this country and a lot more besides. It is important that the rights of disabled workers is recognised and valued, because people are people. They should be recognised and valued. It's not the disability, it's what they contribute to society and to the world of work. That's what we value. That's what we value. I have met so many disabled workers who have been totally frustrated because they have got reasonable adjustments. But then there's a new management come in and all those adjustments can go out the window. Many disabled workers already have frustrations and difficulties. Why do we add to it? The very important task of the disability adjustment passports is essential that they can carry it with them. It's a live agreement that they can actually ensure they get the rights and recognitions which they deserve. Colleagues, comrades, It's time for our 130-odd birthday to make sure we make this one of the key issues in the movement today. And if it isn't enough, over 13% of workers who are disabled receive less pay. What a disgrace in a modern society. The average for women is 7% less pay, merely because they're disabled. Why are we allowing this to happen anymore? This has got to come to an end. I also say, as it says in the joint statement, the TUC report, reasonable adjustments and disability passports, that's the second book you need to take with you. A very good report, and congratulations to the team again on that. This is one of the best reports I've seen. It's not perfect, but I tell you what, it's a great foundation on which to start to get the rights of disabled workers. And as it says on there, our vision is where all workplaces are accessible and inclusive, and where every worker is able to participate fully and equally. That's the minimum we can request, isn't it? Isn't that the minimum we should request? Fully and accessible workplaces. Colleagues, how many in this room who are activists, stick your hand up, who have actually dealt with a disability issue in the last year? Put your hands up. I think that's carried. Thank you very much.
Kevin,
but that shows you the scale of it.
Kevin.
That shows you how important it is. Support this motion, support these reports and put it in practice.
You just got in there in time. Well done. Seconder.
Congress President, I'm here to second motion 131, reasonable adjustment passports, Linda Mercer, Northwestern Irish region. We are an ageing workforce, and with age becomes disabilities. We have people that have disabilities that as they age, the disability goes worse. And they need more and more reasonable adjustments, and they are reasonable. If each and every person has a passport of reasonable adjustments, then every time they change job or they move up within the workforce, they will be able to pass that on to the new management team. We're dealing with a case at the moment of a man who's worked for over 20 years in the engineering department. He's a supervisor and he's a very well-respected member of staff and has done his work very well, but he has a disability, a hidden disability. A member of staff has left and is not being replaced, and his manager has changed over the years. And he is being pressured to do more and more work because his manager didn't realise that he had reasonable adjustments. If he had that passport, then he would just be able to give that to his manager and not have to explain what his disabilities are and how they need to support him. There's plenty of others as we move office, as we move around the authority, or if you change your job and you go and work for somebody else, if you had that passport with you, you would just be able to say, this is what I need and I can do this job. Because no matter what disability you have, in most cases, you can do that job or a better job.
Linda.
Please support.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Move with motion 134, please.
Sue Walker, Yorkshire and North Derbyshire region. Moving motion 134, mental health and the LGBT people. President, Congress. This motion is calling for greater campaigning in the LGBT community about mental health issues and where to seek help when needed. Mental health is a massive issue in all walks of life. It's like a cancer. It's not bothered about race, age, whether you're male or female, if you're a low-income family or affluent and outwardly appear to be behaving as normal. The LGBT community also have to deal with the added pressures and prejudices of discrimination and homophobia, and many signs of mental health do not appear until it's too late. GMB has always been at the forefront of diversity and equality and has a brilliant equality network. We need to use the network to reach out to the LGBT community to let them know they can get help if they need it. Literature could be distributed at the many Pride events that GMB hold every year. We need to reach out to raise awareness and stop the suffering caused by this illness to our LGBT brothers and sisters. Please support. I move.
Thank you, Sue. Seconder?
Gina Harding, Yorkshire and North Derbyshire region. President, Congress. Some of us identify as lesbian, gay, bisexual or transgender. However, LGBT people can be at higher risk of experiencing a mental health problem than the wider population. As identified, there are many factors that can cause this, such as bullying, discrimination, or even from the experience of rejection and hostility from others. The LGBT and mental health connection is particularly clear with LGBT youth. The worst part, they often do not have the resources to cope with it. Teachers and employers may not understand well enough to help or may agree with the attitudes expressed by those perpetrating the bullying. In addition, research has shown that a high percentage of gay men and women have experienced homophobic bullying in the workplace. A total of 640 tribunal claims on the grounds of sexual orientation were accepted in the last 12 months, according to ACAS. Furthermore, Stonewall's message is that workers cannot perform to their full potential if they are not being themselves. Because of the connection between LGBT and mental health, it is important that the community is aware of potential mental health risks and the help available. Depression is a lonely place, but no one should have to suffer alone. Self-acceptance can be hard. Stigma can cause an individual to keep their sexuality a secret. Isolation, stress, anger and anxiety often come as a result of this. Greater awareness and education is essential for those struggling to understand who they are. Finally, if you, like me, are LGBT and suffer from a mental illness, be defiant in your acceptance of it. Bring it up, speak up, and feel sure that your voice will be heard. After all, we have been and will always be a community of fighters. It's about time we dared to show our battle scars. We ask the conference to please support the motion to allow activists to raise awareness and campaign to fight the stigma. I second. Thank you.
Thank you, Gina. Well done. Mover of Composite 10.
President, Congress, Brighton, London Region and National Equality Forum moving motion Composite 10. This motion, I believe, adds to the special report on disability and takes us forward in what we need to do in the overcoming period. All too often, people with disabilities, whether mobility or hidden, are excluded, not because they don't want to work or be involved in GMB activity, but because planners, whether a public transport or buildings, have not fully taken into account the needs of disabled people to ensure accessibility. GMB needs to be at the forefront of campaigning with the Labour Party and hopefully soon a Labour government. The shower can't keep going, can they? That ensures that resources and legislative changes are based, as Emily said, on the social model of disability, with GMB ability members leading on this issue. But also, we as GMB need to ensure that we too look to ensure GMB has the vision to ensure we are, not only for members, but as an employer, an exemplar employer around disability. Let's use the regional self-organised groups, ability groups, to write the toolkit, but ensure it does not just sit on a shelf in regional offices, but is used by all and updated on a regular basis. I move.
Thank you, Brian. Seconder?
Morning Congress, Gordon Brunning, London Region, Chair of Ability, London Region Disability Forum, seconding Composite 10. The essence of this motion is clear and simple. Many of our disabled members, especially those with mobility issues, still continue to find access to private and commercial buildings, whether on arrival or whether inside the building, an issue, with a clear lack of fully disabled toilets, public transport, lifts, and clear signage, and regrettably still having to face and deal with the indignity and embarrassment of having to ask to get help to move around and into the building. We call on GMB Congress to develop and lead campaigns across the wider trade union to raise and highlight the difficulties disabled workers often face on a daily basis, to instruct the CEC to campaign and lobby this government and any incoming government, Labour government we hope, to ensure it has a clear commitment to deliver accessible private and commercial buildings. Your full support for this motion is essential, but what is equally essential is that as a trade union, we get our own house in order and make it fully accessible both into and around for disabled members and workers who visit that building and our buildings. Please support the motion. I second. Thank you.
Thank you, Gordon. A mover of motion 136.
President, Congress. Jennifer Smith, Wales and South West Region, moving motion 136. Congress. We live in a day of political correctness, promoting equality where many in our society are accepting of new ideology and are slowly changing their outdated opinions and prejudices. Most of us already accept in a society where women and minority groups have the freedom and recognition to be equal. Thanks to the successes of past campaigns, the law has changed, allowing us all to live and be accepted on equal status. However, the battle to change deep-rooted presumptions of bigotry has yet to catch up. Outdated behaviour that was once accepted as banter or a little fun is still prevalent in our society by those who fail to see the harm and distress that their actions cause, or that such banter can develop into more serious, distasteful and illegal actions. Numbers available on sexual harassment is evidence that there is much work to be done in educating and change unacceptable, intolerable, and now illegal behaviour. It should be a concern that official figures are not showing any reduction in these heinous crimes, and that based on recent police recordings, 1.3% of all women aged between 16 and 59 are still likely to experience some type of sexual assault. The motion is calling for the GMB to lobby the government and get a change to the relevant legislation. We require all employers to introduce and undertake sexual harassment awareness training. The training package will hopefully raise the profile of those heinous crimes to show any prospective perpetrator that it is no longer acceptable to be overly discourteous, even with innuendo, whilst at work, as such behaviour can often and does lead to more serious infringements of another's dignity. As it is women of a working age who will be most likely victim of unwanted attention in the workplace, is an obvious place to start training and the re-education of those deep-rooted prejudices, in the hope that the message will carry through everyday society and have a positive impact on reducing these appallingly high numbers that not changed in several years. Such changes should be mandatory to all employees, despite your gender, as we know men can also become victims of such unwanted attention. Around 140,000 cases of sexual assault upon men will be reported in the year ahead. Please support and let's get re-education on the agenda, so it not only equality in the eye of the law, but in total acceptance of society where behaviour and attitudes are evidently changed. I move. Thank you.
Thank you, Jennifer. Seconder.
Coilan Brinkworth, Wales and South West, seconding motion 136. President, Congress. I've dealt with a number of cases involving sexual harassment, and there's always been the suggestion of it being just a bit of banter. That phrase, increasingly used to excuse inappropriate, unacceptable, and usually vile behaviour. So let me tell you what can happen when we ignore such behaviour. I was introduced to many people when I started working, but one or two stood out. And the one I remembered most was because I was warned he was a bit of a lech. And this wasn't some woman pulling me to one side, quietly alerting me to this fact. This was a male colleague, in earshot of others, who all nodded their agreement. I was a little shocked and very uncomfortable, but this casual attitude left me feeling unable to say or do anything. Fast forward a few years, and he no longer works there, but only after he had sexually assaulted a colleague. This story is so common, except, of course, not all of them get dismissed. In fact, many of them don't even get reported. There are a number of reasons why women don't report it. There's the historical taboo about talking about it, or because they feel shame, embarrassment, and have a very real fear of not being believed. And there's a general lack of knowledge, understanding, or awareness, and this applies as much to the women who have put up with it for so long they just accept it. Recently, I sat listening to a woman make a joke of sexual harassment as part of an after-dinner speech. And it is this type of behaviour that we need to be tackling, the laughing and joking, the turning of a blind eye. If we don't speak out, we are all complicit with the perpetrator. We tackle this in the workplace and it will seep out into society. Then society will come to look back on what has been exposed by the Me Too campaign with the same revulsion as we have for the casual racism that was the norm when you think back to the signs, no blacks, no Irish, no dogs. We need there to be training and it needs to be mandatory. Please support this motion. I second.
Thank you. Does anyone wish to speak in opposition of these motions? No? In that case, can I ask Margie Clark from the CC to come and give our position?
President, Congress. Margie Clark speaking on behalf of the CEC on Composite 10, access to buildings, which includes motions 135 and 436. The CEC is asking for this composite to be supported with qualification. The CEC fully supports the aim of making buildings as accessible as they can be. We support this motion with small qualifications. These are as follows. We agree that campaign materials should be produced. However, we believe that a checklist may be more suited to the task than a toolkit, although this is an issue that should be explored by the Equality Through Inclusion Department. All reasonable efforts, including proactive efforts, should be made to ensure that GMB's own premises are accessible. Although we note that it's not always possible to anticipate every individual's accessibility requirements in advance. In addition, we note that there may be some rare cases where it might not be possible to make modifications for accessibility purposes. This might apply, for example, in the case of a listed building which requires planning permission before alterations can be made. With these minor qualifications, we ask that Congress supports this motion. Congress, please accept the qualifications on this composite for the reasons I have explained. Thank you.
Thank you, Margie. London, do you accept the qualification? Yes? Thank you. So, motions, composite 9, motion 133, motion 134, motion 136, CC are all supported. Please, all those in favour, please show. Anyone against? They're all carried. Composite 10, London accepted the qualification. All those please show in favour. Thank you. Anyone against? That's carried. We will now debate motions on union organisation, equality and inclusion. But please, can speakers on the next group of motions please prepare themselves. That is on employment policy, rights at work. So motions 191, 192, composite 14, 195 and 199. Thank you. Mover of motion 97, please. Is there a mover of motion 97? London Region? London Region 97, otherwise it will fall if nobody comes up. No? Formally? Is that formally seconded as well? Yep. Okay, thank you. Motion 99, mover for motion 99.
Tamara Powell, Southern Region. President, Congress, first time speaker and first time delegate. Moving motion 99, GMB Equality Monitoring Form. GMB Internal Equality Monitoring Form needs to be updated and changed as it is missing people's nationality and identity. I spoke to a few people. I actually did a semi-survey. They expressed they are not happy to tick the box other because they feel like aliens, and then they're more than that, than the other box. For example, Asian, British, Caribbean, there's not a box for them. They're descendants from the Caribbean islands. Another example, South Americans, there's no tick box for them either. This conference notes that it is vital that GMB gathers accurate, equality monitoring data for our members. It is also important for GMB members who come from ethnic minority or underrepresented groups to feel included in GMB. The current GMB Equality Monitoring Form does not include groups from Asia, British, Caribbean background, many of whom descended from the Asian people taken by slave trade to the Caribbean to labour in mines and sugar plantations. There is also no option to identify as South American. The GMB has a large number of members and activists from these countries that I've mentioned and South America. This conference calls on the CEC to add Asian, Caribbean, British, and also South American to the Union internal monitoring forms to ensure these important groups feel more included because they are more than other. I move.
Thank you. We have a seconder for motion 99.
Emily Brothers, Southern Region, seconding motion 99. It's important that any data monitoring that is undertaken by the GMB is aligned with standard practice, guidance from Office for National Statistics and also the Equality and Human Rights Commission. Equality data monitoring is important so that we know whether GMB is representative at leadership levels, here at Congress, representing and organising in all kinds of things that we do. That improves our decision making, reaches out to different communities, makes us more diverse. It is important. I looked at the data in our Congress packs about delegations and was interested to note there is significant underrepresentation, far more men than women, far more non-disabled people. The proportion of disabled people in the country is 20%, but barely half of that are represented here today. 254 delegates are heterosexual, with only about 15 LGBT and another tick the gender identity box. It means that over 130 people are still working out their sexual orientation. And that may be because they are not confident to be open about their sexual orientation for many of them in the union or wider. Attack on attack from on the LGBT community comes our way. Only yesterday, in a 32-page document from the Vatican, we were told about gender identity being modern thinking, that God creates the individual and that we don't have our personal autonomy and right to express. I was educated in a Catholic boarding school, special school for blind and partially sighted children, where I was isolated, couldn't express my gender identity or sexual orientation, and I don't want that for other people. So I say to Pope Francis and the Catholic Church, but also the other dooms of despair about sexual orientation and gender identity, that it is important to be compassionate and inclusive in the way that GMB is as a trade union. That is the solidarity that we as a union bring to our cause. Congress, I find it very upsetting as somebody from the LGBT community.
Emily, you're on a red. Could you finish up, please?
That we are in a situation that people are not confident in being themselves. And that is why we as a union should have the structures such as monitoring in order to give people the confidence and so we can go forward with diversity. Thank you. I second.
Thank you. Call 101. Can I have the mover, please?
Paul Tony, Southern Region, moving motion 101, boycott the Daily Mail. Conference, President. We are disturbed by the ongoing homophobic, biphobia and transphobic attacks by the Daily Mail the Mail on Saturday, the Mail on Sunday, and the Mail online. Keep on making against the LGBT community. The Daily Mail rarely publish any positive LGBT stories, so it's always been one-sided. They have published stories where they have outed people, especially those who work in the public sector and whose job is to protect us. Have published stories but use images of the wrong people. They often publish negative stories, if not weekly, then on a monthly basis. We can look at what's happening in Birmingham. But before I say more, I need to point out that a shock that they did a rare thing of publishing a positive story around Trans Day of Remembrance. When Daily Mail joined forces with the Nectar, many Nectar LGBTI members cancelled their membership because of the association with the Daily Mail. While we believe in free speech, what the Daily Mail, the Mail on Saturday, the Mail on Sunday and Mail Online are doing isn't fair, and it's time we put a stop to this discrimination. GMB should, with the support of all shout groups, launch a campaign against the Daily Mail, the Mail on Saturday, the Mail on Sunday and the Mail Online to end such homophobic, biphobia and transphobia attacks, comments, remarks, and to get the people to boycott buying their papers. I move.
Thank you. Do we have a seconder for 101?
Good morning, Bedford Hours, Southern Region, first-time delegate, first-time speaker. Thank you. Thanks very much. So I'm seconding motion 101, boycott the Daily Mail. Congress. My branch is B50, and it's located just down the road, and where, alongside other activists and reps, I attended great equalities training. LGBT plus members were identified as those who suffer from greater exclusion and inequality. But not only that, hatred and violence. GMB across all regions fight to ensure equality and inclusion for all our members. Equality is the foundation from which our shared values are built. GMB, as it states, grow, build, change. Those words behind me, whilst cannot fall off that wall, should not fall away from GMB's pledge to every member. Let that strategy include campaigning strongly against negative one-sided rhetoric wherever it's voiced. The right-wing press always speak to try and divide, spreading fear and prejudice. So let's campaign, let's take action, let's boycott the biased Daily Mail with its negative and harmful reporting. Let's stand together and speak up, uniting against homophobic and transphobic views. Please support this motion. Thank you.
Thank you. Can I call the mover of 102, please?
Congress, I'm Victoria Mayer from the Southern Region, first-time delegate, first-time speaker. This is in remembrance for my granddad, who was a shop steward of the Steve Dawson Dockers Union on the River Clyde. He'd be very, very proud of me today. Moving motion 102, stop sexism in the workplace. Sexism in the workplace is an everyday occurrence for most women, and as female GMB representatives, we often come across it all too often in our workplaces. Not just when we represent our members, but from our colleagues in the union too. It is hidden sexism in the workplace language that is the problem, but as I like to call it, unconscious sexism. We have come a long way over the years in fighting for our rights and to be treated equally, although we're not quite there yet. Things are getting better, yet sexism remains in the corners of the words and phrases we use at work. 1970s banter, such as calling a woman honey or love, is as out of fashion as cave paintings. Particularly in the workplace, kinds of sexist language and behaviours are simply just no longer accepted. A colleague experienced sexism from the heart of the union. Feeling nervous about speaking in front of a room full of people for the first time, she was told by a senior regional organisers, just stand behind your colleague, a man, and look pretty. This is from someone who should have known better. Another regional officer, upon greeting a female lady rep, said, "Oh, and how is this beautiful lady today?" A male colleague would never have been greeted in this manner. A firm handshake is good enough for a man. Well, it's sure as hell good enough for me and any other woman to be greeted in this way too. So why is it that all men colleagues feel that it's okay to pull you in for a kiss on the first time meeting you? It's uncomfortable, unwanted, and often delivered by someone who's not even good looking. Familiarity breeds contempt. We, GMB, lead the way in empowering our members to stand up for themselves, to fight for their rights and to be heard, to have a voice in their workplace and fight for equality in pay. Yet we need to lead the way by eradicating this behaviour and language amongst ourselves. Last year, research from the Trade Unions Congress and Everyday Sexism Project found that 52% of women had experienced unwanted behaviour at work, including groping, sexual advances and inappropriate jokes. Amongst the young women aged 16 to 24, the proportion was 63%. The number of women reporting sexual harassment at work halved from 2013 to 2015, while calls to ACAS helpline relating to sex discrimination increased by 14%. We can see that there is still a long way to go before it is eradicated in the workplace. So I'm calling on Congress to support this motion so that every single one of us is mindful of the language that we use towards one another. We need to make sure that as of today, the GMB lead the way in changing the attitudes and languages that we use towards one another and treat each other in a manner we would want to be treated. This is for all the women who are too shy to speak. Congress, I move.
Thank you. Do we have a seconder?
Bev Gowers, Southern Region again, first time delegate, second time speaker. Seconding the motion 102, stop sexism. Congress, language and how we act is important. It's as a union how we grow and gain power. This motion is asking us to be mindful of how we speak to each other. It's about us looking inwards in order that we can take the fight outwards, the fight to stop sexism. We live in a patriarchal society. Women every day face inequality. We have already heard about unequal pay, discrimination and hardship. But women, and indeed men, don't want to be defined by their gender in order to be diminished. So let's all stop contributing to sexism. Let's call it out wherever and whenever we hear or feel it. Let's treat each other with dignity and respect that we all demand. We're not asking, we're demanding. Congress, please support this motion. Thank you.
Thank you. Can I now call motion 103, please?
President, Congress, Matthew Denton, North Western Irish Region, moving motion 103, just a ball game. We would like to bring your attention that despite advancements in certain social contexts, homophobic, biphobic and transphobic bullying and abuse still occurs towards many lesbian, gay, bisexual and transgender people within a sporting environment. This discrimination often becomes hate crime and affects athletes, managers, club staff, match day staff, casual workers and general public alike. A new survey of football fans who identify as being LGBT+ have attended live matches found that 2/3 of respondents experienced incidents of physical and verbal abuse, homophobic or transphobic chanting, and comments from other fans during the 2017 and 18 football season. Furthermore, the survey discovered that perceived LGBT+ fans experienced some reticence in reporting such incidents. 2/3 of home fans and 3/4 of away fans at games had not reported the homophobic and transphobic chanting. These stats sadly echo those of Just a Ball Game's own findings conducted in 2010. Last week, news reports showed that the disturbing attack on 2 young women, simply on a bus, being themselves in a cosmopolitan London environment. We call on our allies to support an LGBT+ community to speak up and speak out, however small or insignificant any comments or abuse may seem, so the risk of these mindsets festering can be curtailed. Like a lot of young people from Liverpool, I've enjoyed playing football from a young age. I played 5-a-side, 11-a-side, Saturday and Sunday league, and enjoyed sport in general. I came out as a gay man at the age of 17. I was lucky in the respect that I had a loving, caring and supportive family and friends to help me through that period of time. However, unfortunately, the game I loved to play so much wasn't as supportive. For various reasons, I slowly stopped playing football, the game I love so much. The stats don't lie, unfortunately, as I myself found out. It wasn't until 5 years ago that I started playing football again, when I found the Mersey Marauders, Liverpool's LGBT football team. This gave me so much more confidence and a renewed sense of wanting to make a difference, and led me on to involving myself within the inclusive and supportive nature of the GMB Union further, through the likes of the national and regional equality forums and our own self-organised group, GMB Shout North West. This is where I met some lovely supportive people, as Lisa Ryan, my equalities officer, and David Hope. This is where I also met Lindsay England, and I seen the excellent work she'd been doing with her campaign, Just a Ball Game. I can honestly say I've never met such a dedicated, committed and passionate person as Lindsay England. The work she's completed and the journey she has made and the dedication she has inspires me further. Thank you. So, teaming up with Just a Ball Game and embracing a stronger together partnership could be the first steps for GMB regions and branches in helping make a difference towards a better educated, inclusive and more diverse workforce, providing guidance and solutions to grow, build and change. 2 weeks ago, Just a Ball Game founder Lindsay England was honoured with the Points of Light Award by number 10 Downing Street for 17 years of service to LGBT inclusion in sport. If a Tory government can recognise this workload and achievement, so too can a progressive GMB trade union. Please support Just a Ball Game and this motion. I move.
Thank you, Matthew. Seconder.
President Congress. Billy Golding, North Western Irish Region, supporting motion 103. Just a ball game. This Congress notes that it is estimated that between 4 and 6% of a UK population workforce identifies being LGBT+. A football club or any other sporting environment is no different. It is a workplace for many service industries under one banner. Evidence shows that the sports environment is festered with persistent and pervasive discrimination against LGBT+ people, many of whom self-select into occupations as they find it easier to manage their sexual orientation if they then do not have to interact closely with others. Giving support to key players such as Just a Ball Game builds on their stronger together partnership workload showcasing progress, hurdles, perseverance and achievements, traits long embraced by trade unions. A ready-made campaign supported by GMB can look back on the growth of inclusion in society, which they have been part of, and also look ahead to the many challenges that may lay along the road to full inclusion. More debate, less hierarchy and progress inclusively means innovation. It's 2019, and yet we still see lesbian, bisexual and transgender female athletes put in a box, told they are too fast and too strong, even though they have the natural genetic specifics making them elite, and that they must harm themselves with drugs to regulate and perform to be allowed to compete with more feminine-looking female athletes with lesser ability. Meanwhile, men with similar or genetic similarities are held up as worthy champions. Please support Just a Ball Game and this motion.
Thank you, Billy. Just in time. Mover of motion 104.
President, Congress and Leader, GMB Wales and South West, moving motion 104. Congress, even though UK law protects transgender workers from discrimination, a third of employers admit that they are less likely to hire a transgender person. Although we are in 2019 and diversity is often celebrated in all walks of British life, a recent survey illustrates the prejudice that is still ingrained in business leaders today. Colleagues, it's our duty as the GMB to encourage businesses to build a trans-inclusive workplace, and we need the backing and support of employers to help understand the issues around transgender workers in the workplace. A business where everyone feels welcome and valued is by far a more productive one. Transforming the workplace gives the GMB a platform to protect our members and to ensure that we can have a clear learning pathway for our reps to be trained to deal with these non-inclusive employers. Our reps and workplace organisers need the tools so that we can ensure that workplaces are a supportive environment for trans people. Colleagues, we should be looking at how to develop a toolkit so that our reps can make a real difference to trans colleagues' experiences at work, supporting them through transition and helping make sure workplaces provide a safe and welcoming environment for everyone. Congress, we need to get our reps educated and obtain the skills needed so that they can review current equal opportunities, bullying and harassment policies to make sure that they promote trans equally, check other policies and procedures such as recruitment policies, record keeping and dress codes to make sure that they do not discriminate against trans people and be able to encourage employers to include trans issues in induction training. This Congress calls on the CEC to set up a working party to look at trans discrimination in the workplace and so achieve the aims we are looking for. I move.
Thank you, Anne. Seconder.
President, Congress, Lorraine de Lazahete, Wales and South West Region, seconding motion 104. Congress, trans people want and expect to be treated with dignity, fairness and equality. The GMB can have a major role in ensuring that all places provide a safe, welcoming and supportive environment. Trans people face massive discrimination in workplaces. 60% of trans workers have experienced some form of discrimination in their workplace. And 53% have felt the need to hide their trans status from their colleagues. It is not known how many trans people there are in the workplace. They choose not to disclose their trans status either before transition or if they start a new job after transitioning. Many trans people are not in the workplace because of the discrimination that they've experienced or feel that they will experience. Congress, we need to implement a good, clear guidance to reps and create a working party with the skills and knowledge to develop good practices and help workplace organisers and reps encourage their employers into adopting positive policies
to support trans people within the workplace. This would make it a better place for all people that have issues with their gender identity. Please support.
Thank you, Lorraine. Does anybody wish to speak in opposition? Okay. Before I call Kath, I just want to make an announcement, an apology. We are running late. That was because I was generous with the time on the CEC special report, which I thought was valid. So I'm having to make a decision that the speakers and the seconders I called for motions 191, 192, Composite 14 and 195, we're actually going to take those after lunch. So I'm sorry to have called you down for no reason at all, but we are going to go on to Composite 13, and then it'll be the General Secretary's report, and hopefully we'll finish then by 12:35. Okay? Sorry, we'll take you this afternoon. All right? Kath, can I ask you to respond on behalf of the CEC, please?
President Congress, Kath Murphy speaking on behalf of the CEC on motions 101 and 104. On motion 101, boycott the Daily Mail, the CEC is asking this motion be supported with a qualification. GMB deplores homophobic and transphobic attacks, comments and remarks, whether they occur in the media. Such attacks, comments and remarks are shamefully not limited to one media outlet and are too often seen across our media and wider public life. We reaffirm our commitment and as a priority for the National Equality Forum to challenge homophobia and transphobia in the media, whether this appears in the Daily Mail or in the Morning Star. This involves challenging bigotry and changing attitudes in our society. To do so, we must be able to counter and challenge prejudices and secure coverage for LGBT+ campaigns, as well as apply reader pressure on these publications to change their ways. This can best be campaigning pressure, including sustained reader pressure rather than a boycott. So these arguments can be challenged head-on rather than ignored. The recent appointment of a new editor of the Daily Mail after 25 years' reign of his predecessor, in which bigotry was allowed to fester, presents an opportunity to apply new pressure and force them to change their editorial approach for good. On motion 104, survey of the workplace trans discrimination, the CEC is asking for this motion to be referred. The CEC welcomes this motion to tackle trans discrimination in the workplace, as with any group of members facing discrimination. We believe that it is a key that those members should be an active part of any discussion or working party and are best to lead those conversations. We believe that this motion should be referred to the NEF to investigate the best way for the NEF to work with the LGBT+ network and regions on this issue. Congress, therefore, please accept the qualification on motion 101 and accept to refer motion 104. Thank you.
Thank you, Kath. Southern Region, do you accept the qualification? Thank you. Wales and South West, do you accept the reference back? Thank you. Okay, so motion 97, motion 99, 102, 103, CEC all supporting. All those in favour, please show. Thank you. Anyone against? They're all carried. On 101, support with qualification. All those please show. Thank you. Anyone against? That's carried. Motion 104, reference back. All those in favour, please show. Anyone against? That's carried. Okay, as I said, apologies, but we're now moving on to Composite 13, Glasgow Women's Strike. If you'd like to come move the composite.
President, Congress, Annette Riley, GMB Scotland, moving Composite 13 on equal pay and the Glasgow Women's Strike. Congress, the Glasgow Women's Strike of last October was one of the biggest revolts by women in history. Low-paid, part-time working women had had enough of a Scottish local authorities, decision-makers and politicians' resistance to achieving equality for them, something that a single status was supposed to achieve but never did. Instead, local authorities, particularly Glasgow, buried their heads in the sand, hoping it would go away. Furthermore, conference, it isn't the first time I've spoke here on equal pay. It's been nearly 50 years since the Equal Pay Act came into force, and we're still forced to take every conceivable action to attain equal pay. 50 years, a lot longer than the women trying to get the vote. However, there are lessons to be learned. GMB Scotland has been very open and public about what we have learned from the experience in Glasgow and other local authorities. To quote GMB Scotland Secretary Gary Smith, a moment of reflection, not celebration, for us and the whole Labour movement. We need to improve on the lessons learned, better information, better resources and better equipped going forward. Congress, my branch has had 13 years of equal pay and have now registered third wave claims. 13 years since single status came in and 13 years of uncertainty, miscommunication, abusive members and lack of resources to enable the branch to do what needs to be done. But we've got there through sheer determination and perseverance. It's been a hard struggle, but we've got better, wiser and more resilient in what we have to do. As you've heard, the fight for equal pay still goes on across Scotland, and not just in local government, but across the private sector as well. Congress calls on the CEC to commit to putting resources into learning the lessons from the Glasgow strike and capture the whole process from start to finish and share it across the Union as best practice. Ensure the GMB's organising strategy for lessons learned from the Glasgow strike and explicitly builds around gender issues. Ensure that all shop stewards from all sectors are specifically trained to deal with equal pay issues, from representing members in the workplace grievances to potential strike action, and to explore a campaign similar to the Step Aside Brother campaign run by former STUC President Lynn Henderson. Congress, please support.
Thank you, Annette. Mover, seconder.
President, Congress, Morag Reid, GMB Scotland, seconding Composite 13 equal pay in Glasgow women's strike. Make no mistake, despite first wave claims, despite over 12 years of fighting for second wave claims, despite 8,000 women marching for justice in one of the biggest equal pay strikes for a generation, and despite Glasgow City Council being forced to eventually pay out over £500 million in claim settlements, when women workers in Glasgow woke up this morning and made their way to work, they were still being discriminated against. Right now, as I am speaking to you, thousands of women workers in Glasgow still face pay discrimination. The unjust WPBR scheme is still in place, and women workers will continue not to get equal pay until a new pay and grading scheme is implemented by Glasgow City Council, which will be at the earliest 2021. Across Scotland, there have been first waves claims, then there were second wave claims, now there are third wave claims. Congress, perhaps one of the most important lessons to be learned from the story of Glasgow is that equal pay is a process, not a destination. This is why we urgently need to review our own structures, develop our own capacity to meet this challenge, and demand reforms of our legal institutions and of all levels of government to deliver and continue delivering equality for all workers. Congress, I therefore urge you to support this motion. I second.
Thank you, Morag. I'm going to ask the question. Does anyone who wish to speak against? No? Okay, I'll now call the vote on Composite 13, which the CC is supporting. All those in favour, please show. Anyone against? Thank you. And I think we should give the women of Glasgow a round of applause. And just to follow on from that, in light of the passing of Composite 13 and due to the historic nature of the Glasgow equal pay dispute, I would like to invite GMB Scotland officers Hazel Nolan, Ria Wolfson to address Congress.
I didn't realise it rises up. Congress, it is an honour to address you. If ever there was a story of snatching victory from the jaws of defeat, then the Glasgow Equal campaign is it. The consequences, if we'd gotten this wrong, if we had failed to rectify the mistakes of the past, would have had a dire impact not only on the women workers in Glasgow who formed part of the campaign, but also future generations of women workers too. Many of you sitting here today won't be aware of this, but your lives have all been affected by the Glasgow Equal campaign too. Whether you're working in British Gas in Preston or the NHS in Cornwall. This is because the consequences our union would have faced if we had got this wrong would have had a devastating impact on the whole union. So it's lucky we got it right. They say success has many fathers and failure is an orphan. Well, in this case, Congress, success had many mothers, just about 8,000 of them, and failure had many fathers. To give context to this, an Audit Scotland report in 2017 clearly stated that women workers in local government fighting for equal pay have been failed by every level of government. They've been failed by Holyrood, they've been failed by COSLA, and they've been failed by the council. And when they have been failed by all three, Congress, they were failed by their union too. Because it should never have taken a team of lawyers 13 years to resolve this, as it should never have been an issue in the first place. I don't believe that Glasgow City Council hate women. They never sat down together in a room and agreed to underpay women because they're women. But what they did do is that when drawing up their budgets, they looked for the path of least resistance, and that path was our women members. And that, Congress, is our historic failure. Because our members should never be the path of least resistance. Perhaps the biggest success of our campaign is that women workers now know how to flex their industrial muscle. They now know their value and they now know their power, and the city will never be the same again. That is because the strike changed everything. It allowed us to finally settle the women's claims for over £550 million. £500 million. It's a staggering figure. And it's a life-changing amount of compensation for our members. But when you think of that figure, Congress, don't think of the monetary cost of it. I want you to think of the human cost of it. £550 million is over 70 million hours. And the reality of our members, for workers who work for a wage, is that they are ultimately selling the most precious thing that they have, which is their time. Meaning women workers had to go out and work 45 hours to put the same food on the table as men workers did with 35 hours. That is 10 hours of every week, of every month, of every year for over a decade. Time they could have spent with their families, and time they will never get back. That brings into sharp focus the many women who never saw justice and who died waiting for equality, including one of our GMB members who worked as a home carer who died on the streets of Glasgow. She died while trying to make her way to one of her service users during the red weather warning and blizzards last year. And while she was trying to make it there, she was being paid a flat rate, while the largely male workers gritting the roads for the council were paid 3 times their hourly salary. And if that makes you burn with a sense of injustice, Congress, like it did for myself and Ria and everyone who was part of this amazing team, and it was a team that delivered equal pay in Glasgow, then perhaps you can begin to understand the swell of emotion that ultimately culminated in this historic strike which my comrade and sister, Ria Wolfson, will go on to address.
Thank you, Hazel.
Thanks, Congress, and thank you for giving me the opportunity to talk about this fight. On the 23rd and the 24th of October, over 8,000 workers took strike action in Glasgow. On top of that, hundreds more stood in solidarity, refusing to cross picket lines, despite the council threatening to sack all of them. That's the headline, and that's what we'll remember. But under that was a body of work, and remembering the process is as important as remembering the result. Just 2 years before, our reputation in the workforce was at rock bottom, and we were hemorrhaging members. In a ballot, we could not turn out 5% of our membership in Scotland's largest local authority. Through a campaign of honesty, constant activity and engagement, we slowly won back members' trust and started to rebuild our membership. After negotiations stalled in equal pay and following months for calls for strike action from our members, we managed to deliver a strike ballot that smashed the legal thresholds with 98% in favour of action. The Glasgow women's strike was always about more than equal pay. It was the culmination of a decade of anger after a female-dominated workforce had been let down and had their terms and conditions decimated. The strike defied the myths that we can't collectivise lone workers and that it's too hard to bring together school workers across a council, or that carers will not strike for their rights. The council threw the whole Tory anti-trade union rulebook at us, but the women, united, will never be defeated. But we aren't at the end of the fight yet. We have years of hard work left to ensure a proper job evaluation system is put in place that doesn't discriminate, and a pay and grading system that rewards our women workers not on the back of our men, but a pay system that brings all workers up. What we want to leave you with today is a message that there was no magic involved in the strike. It can and should be done over and over again across this country until we have justice for all working women. GMB Scotland will be learning the lessons and taking the fight to all industries. We want to put the value of women's work at the heart of everything we do. We will take on the care industry and fight to redefine the value society assigns to care work. We will fight for a decent, actual living wage in local authorities, and we will never, ever again be found wanting when it comes to the fight for equal pay. Congress, this is a fight that we have no option but to win. One member called our office just yesterday to tell us, in her words, "You saved my life." Pay justice is not an option. It is our mission, and as a union, we have an obligation to be unrelenting in our fight. And like our fight in Glasgow, it is a fight that we will win. Solidarity.
Thank you, Ria and Hazel. And that applause is for all the women who went on strike, not just the officers, but for all the women. Thank you. There is a fringe event as well. I probably shouldn't plug one fringe event over the others, but there is a fringe event. I can now move on to the General Secretary's report, and it gives me great pleasure to call on our General Secretary and Treasurer, Tim Roach, to move the General Secretary's report and address Congress.
I therefore declare Barbara Plumb duly elected as National President. Good luck.
Congress, I am so very, very proud to have been elected as your President. Thank you so much.
GMB members across the NHS and ambulance service have voted overwhelmingly to reject the NHS pay offer. So it's a clear message to Jeremy Hunt and GMB members. It's a no from us.
Whichever way you look at it, the privatisation of water has failed, which is why we're fully signed up to the GMB's 6 pledges for water.
Today, GMB is calling for a public vote on the final deal. We have no faith, given what's happened over the last few months, in this government delivering a Brexit deal that works for working people.
This is the relaunch of GMB's campaign to bring respect for the workers of ASOS to this site.
It's about justice. It's not just about justice for us, it's about justice for every single female worker that comes after us.
On Tuesday, we will be taking our petition to the Houses of Parliament.
The government need to act and they need to sort this problem out.
Amazon.
We are not robots.
Amazon.
We are not robots.
What do we want? Recognition! When do we want it?
Our message is clear. Our members are not robots for Amazon.
It was another difficult day for Uber today.
Uber's lost a High Court challenge against giving its drivers basic employment protections, including the minimum wage and holiday pay.
Uber needs to face up to its responsibilities and give their workers the rights GMB have said they're entitled to.
Our members are rightfully worried about the proposed merger and what that could mean for their jobs and their pay.
I've got 30 years service and keep my public holidays means a lot to me, plus the fact I'm going to lose breaks every day of the week now, and it's going to affect me financially.
Asda has pushed us too far. Our members work hard for the company. We've had enough.
Parcel delivery firm Hermes has struck a deal with the GMB union to offer new rights to workers.
We've struck a deal that actually puts respect and dignity back into employment.
Hello everyone, my name's Shakira Martin and today I'm here to tell you about the fantastic membership offer GMB Union is offering to apprentices.
We're out here protesting against ISS today. They're implementing pay cycle changes that basically mean they're withholding pay from workers.
Over the last 12 months, GMB has grown and delivered for our members. Over the next year, GMB will continue to grow. We'll continue to build on our successes and we'll continue to make the change our members seek and we all fight for every day. Together, we're building a 21st century union and I'm so proud that you're at the very heart of it.
Good afternoon, Congress. Tim Roach, General Secretary, so very proud to be moving the General Secretary's report, and where else to start by saying a huge thank you to every single one of you. You've just seen a fantastic video which is just a snippet of the work that goes on behalf of our members day in, day out, and that is a testament and a tribute to every single one of you, so thank you from the bottom of my heart. Thank you too to Barbara, doing a fantastic job in your first Congress, so warm, so inclusive, firm but fair. You're an absolute natural, mate, and a pleasure to work with. And when I said I would, yes, please. And when I stood to be General Secretary, I said I would be the activist General Secretary. And that's taken me again this year, 20,000 miles right across our 5 nations. And at every turn, I've met the activist national president. So Barbara, long may we continue to work together. And of course to Malcolm, who unfortunately isn't able to be here this year because of Lynn's failing health. We send you our love and our best wishes, both Malcolm and Lynn, for all that you both do. And thank you too to June for stepping up at such short notice, always willing, always able, always with such professionalism, always ready to stand for your union. Thanks, June, you're doing a fantastic job. To 2 women presiding over GMB Congress. How times are moving on, Congress. Brilliant stuff. Brothers and sisters, when I took up this post, if anyone had told me that 4 years on, the newspaper headlines would include such gems as Farage trapped on Brexit bus by milkshake-wielding protesters, or the US president thinks that the moon is part of Mars, I'd have thought you were having me on. And whilst I joke about these absurd headlines, as we heard from Alison Phillips yesterday, they're very damaging and it shows what a state the world is in. A US president, and yes, he is US, conducts his diplomacy via social media. Stephen Yaxley Lennon, under his stage name of Tommy Robinson, peddling hate and division, while in the States we see Nazi flags at Pride events, we see the Brexit Party, we see Brexit itself. Politics in the UK utterly unpredictable and business as usual politics gone forever. A world that is less predictable, less stable and more chaotic than I've seen since the miners' strike in the 80s. Back then, it was social vandalism by a government that wanted to break the power of the working class. Now it's economic vandalism, together with a toxic mix of incompetence by a ruling elite intent on finishing the job. The heartbreaking consequences that you see writ large every day, unless you're Philip Hammond, to whom these seem invisible. A nation as rich as ours condemned by the United Nations for how we treat the poorest in our society, yet the bloke who presides over the economic decisions simply denies that poverty exists in the UK. We're not a poor country, Congress. We're a poorly run country. As we celebrate our 130th birthday, we remember that in 1889 our great union was formed campaigning for a guaranteed 8-hour working day. Today, 130 years on, many of our members in the gig economy, particularly our younger members, would give their right arm for a guaranteed 8-hour working day. That's the size of the challenge that we have. In 1979, trade union membership at its pomp, at its height, at 13 million. Now, the latest statistics, half that, 6.5 million. And it's no coincidence at all that in that time, inequality has spiralled. The richest 100 people in the UK have the combined wealth of the bottom 19 million. Those 19 million that we represent every day. Congress, we can make all the excuses in the world, an all-out assault by the Tory government on our right to organise, the failure of Labour governments to reverse those attacks, but in all honesty, we need to look a lot closer to home, as we've just heard from Ria and from Hazel. Too often, our movement was too slow to respond and too resistant to change. We lost the closed shop and didn't adapt fast enough to the new world we had to organise in. We did things the way they'd always been done, despite the industrial earth shifting from under our members' feet. Nationalised services were flogged off and fragmented, yet our organising strategies didn't change as quickly as the employment did for our workers. Schools went from LEA control to academies and free schools, yet we failed to respond quickly. As communication changed, employers embraced it to boost their business models and increase workforce flexibility, using new communication channels to undermine union organisation and collective agreements. We carried on as usual. Colleagues, we must learn from these experiences of those decades when sweeping change diminished our power to use change in the modern era to enhance it. Automation, climate change, globalisation, Brexit, we face some huge challenges. But Congress will not be a union that fears the modern world. We'll be a union that shapes it in the interests of our members and for those who will aspire to join GMB. We can't do as we've always done and hope it will turn out all right. 13 million to 6.5 million membership tells you absolutely the opposite. So we've got a choice. We either shrug our shoulders and say that decline is inevitable and as a management team we'll manage that decline, or we can do something different. We can grow, we can build, and we can change. In this modern era, GMB Union won't accept that a globalised economy means skilled jobs are sent abroad to countries whose governments bend the rules to support their manufacturing industry, while our government bends over backwards to award them our work. It's a scandal, Congress. We have skilled and committed workers in Fife, in Scunthorpe, in Birkenhead, in Plymouth, in Bridgend, in Rosyth, in Appledore, and many, many more who are ready, willing and able to build the industry of the future that this country needs. We won't accept outsourcing of public service contracts, which we've warned time and again would never work. Yet we saw the collapse of Carillion, who went into liquidation with £29 million in the bank, yet owing £6.9 billion. Who paid for that decimation? Our members, not the directors who stuffed their pockets with millions of pounds of workers' money. We won't accept that local government workers will be underpaid, undervalued and overworked. They're the frontline public sector workers who care for our elderly, who feed and teach our kids, keep our streets clean and our communities safe. We won't accept multinational companies continuing to see huge profits on the backs of working people who have no training. Hire and fire, flex up, flex down, flex out the door if you don't like it, because there's hundreds of other people who will accept it. It can't go on. And our NHS. Whose NHS? Whose NHS? Who over the last 3 weeks I've seen firsthand just how brilliant they are. My father, 97 years old, in his last 3 weeks of his life at Milton Keynes Hospital. And the nurses, the doctors, the care workers cared for him as if he was their father. You will never privatise and fragment our jewel in the crown. So together, Congress, we're creating a trade union that plants a flag in the sand and says, come and join us, because together we're making a difference. A union that knows and believes that power comes from and must reside with working people. A union that is built on the age-old understanding that working people are most powerful when they organise themselves for the collective good, with a collective voice and with collective action. Bosses may have power when workers are divided, but when we stand together, our voice is loud and our might is absolutely unstoppable. A quiet life never delivered an ounce of change conference, and now is not the time for silence. We'll be the boldest and bravest in the collective movement of working people right across the UK, proclaiming loudly who we are, what we stand for and what we can achieve together. Not an insurance policy, but a movement. Not in decline, a rallying cry for the working class, and no instance in recent memory exemplifies that ethos more than the brilliant Glasgow women's strike. I went and stood on the picket lines with our amazing women there. I marched, and as I stood at the top of the hill looking back at the procession, the scale of it was both awe-inspiring and heartbreaking, because it had taken our union far too long to do right by those remarkable women who care for the most vulnerable in our society, who work too hard for too little and have been robbed of the pay they rightly earned. They were there with GMB flags in their thousands, standing up and being heard across the city and across the world in the biggest ever strike for equal pay. And they won. We won hundreds of millions of pounds in the pockets of working women. I pay absolute tribute to Gary, to Rhea, to Hazel, to Shona, to every single one of you. What a fantastic campaign. And in years to come, Conference, I don't doubt that strike in Glasgow will be seen as a defining moment, because it shows that we can't be afraid to take action. When we act in the interests of what is fair and right and good, when we do that by listening and empowering working people, they will join us. And together then we'll win. Just like with Asda. We said we would no longer stand by, no longer turn a blind eye and let our women members be discriminated against in their pay packets. Thousands of equal pay cases now filed as we pursue justice for our members. We said we wouldn't support the Asda-Sainsbury's merger at all costs to keep the bosses happy. We didn't. We won. No merger. Rather than closures, we now have growing Asda membership. We said we wouldn't sit by and let Contract 6 be imposed on our members and Congress. That battle continues, and we've never had more members in Asda than in recent memory, because we know when we grow, when we fight, when we build, we will deliver real change. And we're taking on the gig economy. A fighting trade union doesn't sit back and allow this explosion of 0 hours contracts, bogus self-employment, abusive agency workers, all in the name of flexibility, but in reality, flexible for who? Conference. Flexible only for the employer. Our groundbreaking agreement with Hermes shows our money is where our mouth is. That exemplary campaign brought together industrial activism, a solid legal campaign, hard-hitting communications, national headlines supported by a political strategy that was rooted in members' lives. It brought the employer to our door because they just wanted it to stop. It delivered guaranteed wages, paid holidays and access to 17,500 workers who before that had nothing. But brilliant though these campaigns are, brilliant though these wins are, that action must now become the rule and not the exception in GMB. No fight in the coming years will be bigger than that around energy and climate change. Climate change is a reality, Congress, and if we deny that, we will cease to be relevant to the modern world. I've got kids. I want the planet to be still here for them when they're grey and old, and I want it to be here for their kids and their kids after that. It shouldn't be seen as radical, you know, to want an energy solution that reduces emissions, creates decent jobs, keeps the lights on, the economy moving, and doesn't fleece the average bill payer. That's political, economic and moral common sense. GMB is an energy union, and I want us to be a proud energy union for the next 130 years as well. But that means fighting for investment in nuclear and hydrogen to decarbonise our energy network whilst protecting jobs. A nationwide scheme to insulate homes and businesses. A commitment to the UK supply chain to create thousands of green-coloured jobs. Yet it's become typical of the sector that when we generate renewable energy on our shores, the wind turbines were manufactured in Scandinavia, transported here on Dutch diesel-burning barges, and connected into our grid with Chinese cables. That means the vast majority of cash spent on renewables in this country is knowingly and scandalously being awarded offshore. That's what we're going to be fighting in 2019, and fight we will, on every front, in every workplace, in every sector. And to do that, we have to be the most effective fighting force we can. So I come back to where I started my speech. When I was elected 4 years ago, I realised that to change the world, we had to change our union first. And I'll be really honest with you, Congress, that's not easy. A great union like ours, 130 years of proud history, proud culture, and ways of doing things, that's not easy. And last year, when I stood here, I spoke about my pride of leading 9 regions but 1 union. That started something. So many of you came up to me afterwards and said how right that was, that you're fiercely proud of your regions, quite rightly, but that sometimes we behaved as 9 different unions and not 1. And that was hard to hear, because in this room we're all GMB. From Stockport to Stirling, Leeds to Llandudno, Norfolk to Nottingham, Brighton to Birmingham to Belfast to Dublin and Durham, we're all proudly GMB. 5 nations, 9 regions, 1 union. So for the last 12 months, I've been working with our brilliant senior management team to cement that at the very heart of how we operate. For the first time in our history, we asked every GMB employee what they understood about our union, who we are and where we're going. For the first time in our history, we brought every manager in the union together to talk about how we can work smarter, develop our people better to serve you more. For the first time as a senior management team, we brought together every employee in the union to launch the One Union plan. One union means being proud of our regions, but being one organisation with one shared set of aims pulling in the same direction. One union rooted in the very best traditions of our union, that we achieve more through our collective endeavour than we will ever achieve alone. One union making sure that every single penny you trust in us is spent on growing our union, building our structures and delivering change that matters. It reasserts why we do what we do every single day. Everything we do, every action we take, every campaign, every conference must and will be about delivering real, lasting and practical change in the working world for the people that put their trust in us. You, our brilliant members. It was American journalist Sidney Harris who so eloquently said, "Regret for the things we did can be tempered by time. It's regret for the things we did not do that's inconsolable." Or, as my old mate Bob Crow put it, if you fight, you might not always win, but if you don't fight, you'll never bloody win. I could already hear the howls from the right-wing press, such as upstanding organisations like the Taxpayers Alliance. The Taxpayers Alliance. Ooh, come on, the Taxpayers Alliance. Ooh. More like the Tax Dodgers Alliance. I was sitting there yesterday, this is absolutely true, I was sitting there yesterday and I've seen they've launched their new campaign. Colleagues, I'm not kidding. A campaign to shoot down red union barons and take a stand against socialism. Because while trade unions are apparently dinosaurs from a lost age, we simultaneously have too much power. Don't know how that works, you couldn't make it up. This from the unelected, undemocratic, free trade, free-for-all loving, hard-right, Tory libertarian group. A group who, rather than represent taxpayers, the reality Congress is, they represent tax exiles and taxpayers from other countries than the people of this nation. Congress, we're the real Taxpayers Alliance. 620,000 people, 620,000 strong, who care for our members, who pay for and work for our public services. We're the Taxpayers Alliance. But just as we have this week, I'm looking forward to the Taxpayers Alliance holding their conference to democratically decide their policies. Well, there's a phone box just down the corner. I'm sure that will be available for them. And I say to them, and I say to the Tories as well, and whoever takes over once they've started, stop fighting over the bag of coke. Bring it on. Bring on the battle. Bring on the battle. It'll be the same battle for us. Don't matter if it's Boris or Charlie, or whatever his name is, Charlie someone. If they want to see a 21st century fighting movement as relevant to the working people as it's ever been, then watch GMB at work. We're not going anywhere, colleagues. Look at Hermes, look at ASOS, look at Net-a-Porter, look at Swissport, look at Wilco's, look at British Gas, look at the stand we're taking at ISS, look at when we won the strike at Sodexo, and we won't stop there. Amazon, until you stop abusing your workers and they leave working in an ambulance, we're coming after you. DX. Don't. DX, if you think you're stringing us along by having meaningless conversations, then you're wrong. Until you give our employees, our workers, the fairness they want and deserve, we ain't going anywhere. ASDA, imposing Contract 6 isn't right. Your workers are angry and we're taking you on. Barking and Dagenham Council, Care UK, DPD, we're coming. A fighting, campaigning movement, growing our union, building our power, changing the world of work together. Thank you, I move.
Thank you, Tim. Thank you. Does anybody have any questions on the report? No? So I'll now put the General Secretary's report to Congress. All those in favour, please show. Anyone? That concludes Congress. I apologise again for its overrun. Enjoy the fringe events. I will get a log. I've just got a photograph taken first with my region and the workshops and the exhibitors. I've had a special request from Stress Network. They're right over in the corner, so if you can just sort of make sure you go around all the periphery exhibitors as well. Please be back in the hall for 2 p.m. Thank you.